Hi, I'm Mayne, and this is the EFX DVD. This DVD is based upon my own experiences in magic, starting off as a teenager, wanting to get into illusions but not having the money or resources, to when as a professional, working on cruise ships and overseas, but not having the space or a workshop to build big props. It's for people looking to get into illusions and for experienced professionals looking for inexpensive, easy-to-build effects to add to their existing show. This is the kind of DVD that I wished I'd had at the start of my career, along with a time machine and a monkey. But that's another story. Most of the illusions on here cost almost nothing to put together. The more expensive ones will have multiple applications, so you'll get a lot out of them. On this DVD, I'll show you how an illusion is presented, explain some of the theory and method, show you how to build it, and then show you how to perform it. But the most important thing is what you bring to it. And I don't mean that in a cliched sense. The greatest illusionists, David Copperfield, Doug Henning, the Pendragons, and Siegfried and Roy, were all able to apply their style and personality onto the same basic kind of illusions. I look forward to seeing how you apply your personality and style onto these illusions. Besides the fact that it's easy to put this effect together and it will cost you way less than just about any other illusion involving motorcycles, there are two things I really dig about Mini Moto. The first is that it happens so quickly. You raise that checkered flag and drop it in an instant, and there's the mini motorcycle. The second thing I dig about this trick is that it brings a part of my personality onto stage. I love those mini motorcycles. My friends and I have a blast riding them around, and it's cool to put that into a trick that I can share with my audience as part of an illusion. The Mini Moto appearance is based upon black art. In back of the scaffolding here, I have a solid black panel that blends in with the black backdrop and the black flooring. The motorcycle is hidden inside of this invisible zone back here. And when it's time for it to appear, I have the help of a secret assistant. That would be Justin. So I raise up the curtain, Justin pops up, sets the motorcycle here, and then pops back down. Now, to make this front part of the scaffolding and everything here pop out and to make the background recede, I use this flashlight located right here. I place a bright light here to create a very well-lit sense of space here. You want your audience to think that this part is all lit up because it's important, and then everything in back of it's just shadow and it's not part of what you're doing. On a technical level, there are three things I like about this effect. The first one is the fact that the motorcycle appears in a place other than where it was hiding. In many black art effects, the object or the person that's made to appear is simply hiding behind the black art and then it's dropped, revealing them. In this trick, the motorcycle starts off in a totally different place than where it's caused to appear. You have that motorcycle hiding behind the back of the scaffolding, you raise the curtain above the scaffolding, and when you drop it, there's the motorcycle. There's no way it could have been there at the start of the trick. They can see that space clearly up until the moment you raise that curtain and then drop it in a fraction of a second. There's no way the motorcycle could have been there all along. The second thing I like about this effect is the fact that you never see the assistant. The assistant is what makes it all possible, but they're never seen by the audience. You might have some way of hiding a motorcycle, but how do you get it into view? That's the tricky part of this effect, and that's why the hidden helper is a great addition and makes this much more magical. The third thing which is cool about this on a technical level is the fact that you don't have to use a motorcycle. Any object your assistant can set up there will work fine, and you can do multiple objects. You can raise that curtain up, drop it, have a motorcycle, pull that motorcycle off there, raise the curtain up again, and produce another motorcycle. You could produce a person if you want. I think an inanimate object like a motorcycle is probably a little bit cooler, but there's no reason why you can't just make a person appear there.
Let's take a look at Mini Moto in 3D. This is what it looks like from the front. Right here is the center of attention. If we take a look from the back, you can see how our helper remains invisible and outside the center of attention. You want the scaffold far enough from the back to create separation from the back wall, but not too much separation that the black art doesn't work.
The mini motorcycle appearance is a very easy to put together illusion. That's because all the hard work has been done for you by the manufacturers. You just need a scaffold, the motorcycle, and about $20 worth of materials, and you're ready to go. The scaffolding can be bought at Home Depot or Lowe's or a hardware supply store, or you can buy it online from Amazon. I have a link to that on my website at illusionefx.com where you can buy it. There it's like $130 and they'll ship it right to you. The other materials you're going to need are a cloth to cover up the front of it with, and then a black art back. For the cloth, I just bought some checkered fabric at a fabric store and looped it over a dowel. In fact, this isn't even one complete rod. This is two of them that I just used gaffer's tape to stick together. I didn't sew this on here. I just used safety pins to hold it on because I'm lazy. But you can actually have this sewn in by yourself or a seamstress, or you can use some fabric glue to make this a little more steady, but this worked well enough. For the black art gimmick, what I did is I took some foam core boards and I glued, using some spray adhesive, some black felt to it. Now the dimensions for this, if you use the same size scaffolding that I did, is approximately 43 inches by 36 inches. I put a crease in the middle of it so it will fold up nicely and can fit into a car without any trouble. And to keep it from falling apart at the seam, I just ran an X-Acto blade along one edge so I could create that crease but still have the board hold itself together, and then let the fabric, the felt, hold it all together on the top. So that's all that is. It's very, very simple. You can use cardboard or plywood, whatever. I used foam core because it's easy to work with and very lightweight. And for the cloth that you cover up the front with, again, I just took some fabric, threw it over the top. The dimensions, the width on this is whatever the standard fabric size is on a bolt of fabric. Here is 44 inches, and it's approximately 40 inches in length. And because I have it looped over so light doesn't go through it, it'll be about 80 inches. In fact, I think I've got it gone over here like 4 times because I was too lazy to even cut the fabric. And I just safety pinned it there because that's the way I work. It's something you can put together very easily and very quickly. And once you have it assembled, you can start playing with it and have fun. Here's the basic setup for the Minimoto appearance. The scaffolding of the black art piece should be in front of a black backdrop and on top of some black covering or a dark floor. You don't want to do this on a brightly colored floor because what will happen is that area where the black art in back of the scaffolding meets the floor will look really artificial. So if your stage is too bright, just take a piece of black fabric and throw it down there. Now the motorcycle and your secret assistant should be hidden behind the black art panel. For the checkered curtain that I use, I like to grab it in the middle and throw that over the top. That makes it very easy to pick it up and to unfurl it without it getting all tangled up and having to wrestle with it, looking really clumsy. Your flashlight, which helps make the center area here pop and the background recede, should be right down here. Now, sometimes you might be in a situation where you can't have everything set up like this behind curtains. There are 2 options for that. Option number 1 is to start off with your flashlight up here and the curtain on there and pull the thing onto stage. Now this will work as long as you have a black backdrop and a black flooring here that will help mask the black art area. Your black art, of course, will have to be attached to the scaffolding. Another option is to actually cover the whole thing with a cloth and to push this on stage with, of course, your assistant walking behind there pushing the motorcycle. Those are a couple different options. Ideally, this thing should just be set up by your assistant when the curtains are closed and the curtains open up and you go and do the illusion. Here's how you perform the Minimoto appearance. It's really easy because all the hard work is being done by your assistant behind there. You walk up to the scaffolding, you grab your checkered flag, and you unfurl it. And show both sides, just for effect, and then raise it up in front of the platform on the scaffold. Now what you need to do is you need to cue your assistant, which can either be something in the music, a timing cue, or just do what I do and say, now. After I say that, I make this dramatic gesture, I touch the front of the curtain like that, and then I drop it, and boom, there's the motorcycle. It's that easy. It's just a matter of timing, keeping the time that when the curtain is up down to as little amount of time as possible to make the effect just really dramatic. For the alternate way I mentioned of performing this effect, where you push the prop onto the stage, you can just use your checkered flag on the front of the prop like this, with either end just sticking through this part of the scaffolding, holding it there. Your assistant is behind the scaffolding and behind the black arc, which is actually attached to there and pushes the motorcycle into place. So you just drag this onto stage, and when you want to make it appear, pull your checkered flag out, show that there's nothing there, and then raise the checkered flag up, and lower it, just like that. Here are 3 things you need to remember to really make this effect work. The first one is lighting. You've got to make sure that your stage is well lit, but not too well lit that the black arc shows. That'll kill the trick. The second thing you've got to remember is that this is all about timing. The faster you get that motorcycle up there and pull that curtain away, the more impressive the trick is. Literally, the amount of enjoyment the audience will get out of this trick can be measured in how much time it takes you to raise that curtain and to lower it. The third thing to remember is presentation. All too often, I see illusionists spend a lot of time and money on a trick and decide they're going to try and get their worth out of it on stage by taking up too much time. Don't do this. Take as much time as it needs, but not anymore. Some of the best illusionists in magic are people that appreciate this and can go on, perform something very quickly, and move on to the next thing. Now, the next thing could be anything. It could be a 10-minute card trick, whatever. But don't overdo this trick. Don't make it overstay its welcome. Introduce the scaffold, raise that curtain, and produce that mini motorcycle, and then be done with it. Now, you can ride the motorcycle around, do whatever you want, but don't drag this into a really big, long production, because that'll diminish the impact of the effect. In quantum physics, it's believed that particles have different properties when they're not being observed. Is the same thing true for people? Let's find out. Excuse me, sir, would you assist me with a scientific experiment?
Yes, I will.
Please, stand here and face forward. What I want you to do is to close your fists, raise them above your head, and cross them. I want you to imagine that the audience is not here, that I'm not here. Close your eyes and do this right now. Got it?
Yes.
Nobody's here. You're not real. Do you feel me pressing against your back?
Yes.
Not anymore. Spooky. Open your eyes. You have no idea what just happened, but it was awesome. What is an illusion? When I was young, I used to think an illusion was something really big. It was some big prop made of metal or plywood or whatever, had moving parts, and it did the trick. That was wrong. That was completely wrong, but that was an idea that took me forever to get out of my head. In a trick like the fifth dimension, you realize that an illusion could be as simple as 2 people and something that happens. Now, obviously, something like a levitation is like that, but it's easy for us to forget that because as magicians, we just tend to think about the apparatus. An effect like the fifth dimension is a good reminder that an illusion is not a big apparatus. An illusion is simply something that happens magically on a large scale, usually involving people. The genesis of this effect started from reading comic books like Watchmen and the Fantastic Four. Both of these involve characters who got special abilities because the way their matter behaved was fundamentally changed. I love that idea. What if one solid object, being a person, could pass through another solid object without big apparatus, keeping it as simple as possible? And that's where this idea began to develop from. I then tried to take the idea of a person passing through a person effect and getting rid of as much apparatus as I could, both the apparatus seen by the audience and the apparatus required by the performer. One of the reasons I wanted to put this effect on the DVD is because of the fact that all the apparatus can fit inside of a briefcase and you don't even need a helper. You just bring somebody up from the audience and you use them. That's all it takes. An illusion does not have to be you and a big prop, nor you and a bunch of assistants. You can perform an illusion without a lot of apparatus with just somebody from the audience. The method behind the fifth dimension is really simple. I use what's called a seance cloth. That's a curtain with a rod and a fake hand. By placing this around a person while their arms are still visible, I can create the illusion that I pass right through them by letting go at this hand and then working my body around them and then grabbing the cloth and pulling it away. This illusion makes a good trick that you can use to plus something else. After you have somebody up on stage and you perform some other routine, maybe a handcuff escape, a rope escape, or a shackle escape, and you want to prove the point that you can actually move through solid matter like a human being, this is a great way to end an effect like that. It comes as a surprise. The audience isn't expecting what's going to happen next, and it happens very quickly and very visually, making a nice way to prove your point with magic. To make a seance cloth like this, you'll need a large bed sheet, 2 wooden dowels that are taped to each other, a bulldog clip, and one of these fake hands. This is a latex hand that's very easy to slide your own hand into and out of, and is pretty good with color matching. You want to try and get that hand to match as closely as possible to your real hand. After you have your materials, it's really easy to put this together. Just take your dowels, which are taped together to give them a little bit of thickness, and slide them into the top hem of the bed sheet. Then take your fake hand and use the bulldog clip to clip it to there. That's generally all you need to put this thing together. The rest is all in the handling. Here's the setup for the illusion. You want to have the cloth folded and ready so it's very easy to pick it up. So start off with it unfolded. Just grab a center part of it and pull it over the fake hand like so, and set it off stage or in a convenient place so you can grab it easily and slide your hand into position. Once you have that, you're ready to go. Here are the steps to performing this illusion. Now, to give you an idea of what's going on behind the curtain, we're going to perform this sideways. Justin, if you just stand here and face forward. Now, you want to bring somebody up from the audience to make it much more effective. Ideally, you want to make sure that they are tall enough that their hands will be above the curtain and that they are not too wide that it's hard for you to get around them. After you've found the right person and you've asked them to stand still, you're going to give them their instructions. While you're giving them the instructions, you're going to unfold the cloth to make it very easy to get this into place and to put the fake hand in when you need it. So I'm going to tell this person, say, okay, all right, raise your hands above your head, clench your fists, now cross them. Now, you don't have to have them do that. You can have them just raise their hands with their hands open, whatever. I just like the look of that. Now it's very critical that you ask them to close their eyes. If their eyes aren't closed, they see everything, and they're just going to look at you like you're an idiot, which we already have enough of that being magicians. Once we've done this, we're ready to start the actual effect. I'm going to bring the curtain in front. I'm going to tilt my hand like this so it's just the fake hand showing. I'm going to grab the other end here with this hand, and I'm going to begin to pull this hand out as I kind of do these settling movements to get the curtain into position. Now I'm going to tell him that he's got to imagine that there's no audience, that I'm not here, that none of this really exists. After I've done that, I'm going to gently touch him on the back, raise this above my head like so, and using an idea for mentalism, I come in front of him and I go, "Did you feel me touching you on the back?" And he will say,
Yes!
and then I pull away the curtain, revealing that I'm now in front of him. By touching him on the back, moving around the front, and then asking him that, it gives the impression that I'm still back there, and just a fraction of a second later, I'm in front of him. Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
And there you go, a very quick, inexpensive illusion you can perform with just the right amount of work, and making it look fluid is very effective and fun. The best way to get good at this is to videotape yourself performing this to make sure you can get your hand in and out and around quickly in a fluid manner. Here are 3 things to remember about the 5th dimension. The first thing you want to do is to make sure the fake hand you use looks like your hand. I've seen performers use fake hands that are just way wrong in color. What you need to do is to make sure they're close enough in tone that nobody will notice. It doesn't have to be an exact match, but close enough that nobody will notice at first glance. The second thing you need to remember is to keep things very fluid. You want to practice moving the curtain forwards and backwards and up and down while you're moving your body around that of the spectator. You want to make this look as clean as possible. If there's too many weird motions or jerky actions, it's going to look false. The beauty in this illusion is making it look like you simply just walked right through them like they were a ghost. The third thing to remember about this illusion, that it's best used when you already have somebody up on stage for another reason. If you bring somebody up on stage and then perform this trick and then have them sit back down, it's going to take up a lot of time and kill some of the element of surprise. You want to use this in the context of another effect, that way you create maximum impact. There's an important idea in illusion theory to consider, and that's whether or not things should look planned. This can both apply to plots and our props, the way they look. An example of this would be a zigzag. This is a prop that's designed to do a specific thing, to cut a person to thirds. Now, a buzzsaw illusion might look a little bit less planned, although the buzzsaw implies you're supposed to cut somebody in half. It looks like something you might cut lumber with. And you can think about this, too, as far as the way you routine your effects, too. Does everything happen the way it's supposed to, or does the magic look like it's impromptu? I believe that it's important to have...
You are crazy, my friend. No, of course you can be on. Why wouldn't you be able to be on?
I'm doing a DVD.
I'm on the phone.
Sorry.
Yeah. No. Just talk to John the Benny about it. Benny, 311. Yeah, no. Give him a call. You want something number? I totally got Ben's number for you. It's okay. Yeah, no, it's the funny thing. And he's the biggest name dropper ever. Me, Blaine, we're all over at Kenner's house the other night. We're laughing about it like it's the funniest thing in the world. Yeah, sure. No, I'm over Andy's place. We shouldn't have even or something. Anyway, yeah, so Cyril takes a picture of it, Simon Drake, and, you know, it was just, I could not think of anything funny. It was like the funniest thing in the world of all of them.
There's no reason why an illusion has to be a big prop with a lot of production going around it. I think a really good illusion show has magical moments that can happen at any time and place. In Vanished, that's exactly what we did. We created a little skit which resulted in me making Justin vanish. Think about that when you start planning your illusion show. How could you make the magic happen outside of the confines of what regular magic is supposed to be? What I mean by that is, we're used to the idea that the music starts, the magician puts some prop on stage and then goes and does some illusion with it, and then the music stops, and then they talk to the audience and they go into the next bit. What about that space in between? What about that space where the audience isn't expecting the magic to happen, or where a magician normally wouldn't put it in there? That's where I think is the most powerful places to put magic, because that's what makes it more entertaining, the idea that magic really can happen at any moment. Even if it looks like a planned out skit at the end of the effect, the audience knows that your whole show is the show.
If you were paying close attention when we did the Vanish, you'll remember that the stool started off in the back of the scaffolding. This is here to create the idea in the audience's mind that this is an open area and that anything back here is well lit and would be clearly visible, which is true if it weren't for the fact that on back of the scaffolding, shortly after I moved the stool out of the way, I dropped down a piece of black art, creating an invisible zone for Justin to drop down into.
My favorite part about Banished on a technical level is the fact that the space that the person goes into is a dynamic space. It does not exist at the beginning of the trick. When you start off the effect and you walk around the back of the scaffold and you grab the stool, you establish that that is an open, empty area. There is no place for somebody to hide. But a moment later, with the release of the black art, you've created a space for them to go into. Now, this is an old idea in black art, but I think it's very deceptive and could be used more often. One of the other things I like about this trick on a technical level is how fast it happens. From the moment that person stands up there and you raise that curtain in front of them, it seems like just half a second before you pull it away and they're gone. It should look like there's not even enough time for them to jump down into the space that they went into. It should look like they just literally vanished.
Let's take a look at Banished in 3D. At the start of the illusion, the Vanish zone is visible because of the stool. At the end of the illusion, we've created a hiding space, but it's empty in the minds of the audience because in their frame of reference, they can still see into that space.
For the Vanish, you're going to need the scaffold that you used for the Minimoto appearance, a stool, and then two pieces of materials like these, as well as the flashlight. This is the black art gimmick that hides the performer, and this is the piece of cloth that we use to put in front of them when we do the Vanish. This is literally just a bed sheet. I took a bed sheet, put a dowel through it, folded the sheet in half, and Viola, I have a big cloth I could use. I know, bed sheet. You can use whatever you want. I use this because it was quick and cheap, and I just used safety pins there to hold it in. For something a little more permanent, probably want to sew something and make it a little bit nicer, maybe some sequins. Your choice. For the black art material that goes on the back of the scaffold that you use to conceal the person who's vanished, I recommend a material that's really, really jet black, like either a felt, maybe a jersey cloth, or some Divotine if you can get a hold of it. This material is, I believe, 44 inches wide by 35 inches tall. That's the finish size. The actual size of the material is a little bit longer, and I'll show you why. At the bottom of it, I have a dowel rod that is actually glued in here using fabric glue. This is to help give this some weight, so when it has to unroll, it just falls down. At the top of it, you'll probably want to sew in maybe a smaller dowel rod or something else to make it rigid. I cut a couple corners here and just folded this over again, used my fabric glue, and then used gaffer's tape to hold it to the back of the scaffold. You might want something a little more sophisticated, but for quick and dirty purposes, this works fine. So again, that finished length is 35 inches and it's 44 inches wide. and put something in there at the bottom to help it unfurl. Nothing too heavy. This is just a wooden dowel rod. You don't want a big metal rod or something that's going to clank, but something that gives it enough weight that when it's time for it to unfurl, it happens pretty quickly and won't get hung up. To set up this effect for performance, you need to have your scaffolding against a black backdrop and on a black floor. The piece of black art that unfurls should be rolled up and set on a ledge on the back of the scaffolding. I use a little clamp here that's like a C-clamp and just sit it there. As long as the scaffolding isn't moved around a lot, it'll stay pretty steady, and it's very easy for me to just release like that when I walk around the front.
There's one more thing you want to add to help out the person who's making the jump, and that's a piece of black foam in back of the stool that serves as a crash pad. This will make the landing a lot easier on the knees and make it easier for them to do this thing over and over again.
After you put your scaffolding in place and you've rolled up the piece of black art, you want to have a stool in back of there. You probably want to have this light right down here, and then you're going to set your cloth on top of the scaffolding. Again, like the checkered flag in the motorcycle, the easiest way to have this set up is to grab that middle and throw it over the top like that and set it here. That way it keeps it into sort of a nice little bundle, which is very easy to unfold. After this is all set up, you're ready to perform the illusion. Here are 3 things to remember about Banished. The first thing to remember is that Banished is a trick that works well when the audience is caught off guard. Don't present it like an illusion. Make it look like an impromptu moment. Make the audience think that what's happening was unexpected, that it was a surprise. Yeah, they'll figure out at the end that it was a trick, but that's okay, because they'll be entertained by then, and that's the goal. The second thing to remember about Banished is you want to make sure that visually it looks right. You got to get that curtain high enough, and you got to pull it away quick enough to make the vanishment look really cool. This is a thing worth practicing. You might need a larger curtain, you might need something to stand on, but make sure it looks right from all the angles your audience will be sitting at. If somebody sees something from a side angle that looks like a guy jumping behind a scaffold, it's not going to be good. So pay close attention to your angles and adjust accordingly. A bigger curtain, standing higher, whatever, but make sure that it looks good from every seat in the house. The third thing to remember about this is you want to make sure that the performer who is doing the dive behind the scaffolding does not get hurt. Although you couldn't see it because it was completely black, I have a crash pad on my stage for them to jump down onto. I want them to jump down there as quickly as possible, but I also don't want them to get hurt. Now, it's typical of this generation. Yeah, I know I'm part of this generation, but that's why I am atypical. Call the cops? What am I going to say? I don't know, officer. He just vanished in a puff of smoke. No, there is no smoke. You got to embellish these things. It's absurd. How often? Oh, if I could count that high, I'd be Stephen Hawking. No, it's ridiculous. The kid is totally undependable. If you were at least a little bit more reliable, I could count on these things.
And it's so funny that David starts crying. Copperfield. Which means I owe Teller $50 now. And the man won't shut up about it.
There are a lot of ways you can use this basic effect. Here we presented it as a way for me to switch places with Justin in an instant. You can use this as a way to teleport into the audience to another part of the stage or to make somebody vanish who's going to reappear later in the show. You can use this any way you wanted, but we wanted to show you what was possible with next to no props.
Here's the method behind that really fast switch. Now, I've used the scaffolding with the black art here as a place for Justin to hide and then for me to hide. But you don't have to use this. You could use the edge of a stage wall, you could use a curtain, or some other obstruction. This is just convenient and works out fine. I've got a curtain placed here, and when I walk up to it and grab it, it's not a seance hand, which some people think it is when they see that hand there and they come up and they see the switch. But if you follow the fingers are consistent all the way through, except for this point right here, when I reach down to grab the cloth. That's actually not my hand, that's Justin's hand grabbing it like so.
An effect like transformer is a great way for you to start appreciating how essential timing is to illusion. You can watch the same trick done by totally different performers and it'll have a dramatically different impact. You watch a sub-trunk done by somebody who's maybe spent a couple hours practicing it and uses a friend who spent even less time doing it, and it's not that impressive. You watch the Pendragons who do it better than anybody I've ever seen, and it'll blow you away, even if you know how the trick is done. And an effect like this is based entirely upon the same kind of timing that makes that trick work.
Let's take a look at Transformer in 3D. Part of why it works is because the space where the switch takes place is incidental to where the illusion takes place. For this version, we used black art to create an area that doesn't even exist in the mind of the audience.
The materials for Transformer are very easy. You just need a black art gimmick to go on the back of the scaffold. This can either be something rigid like this panel, or you can use some black fabric that you just glue to the back of it or adhere to the back of it using gaffer's tape. I like the panel because it's kind of rigid and it can stand on its own, and I can move it in and out of place pretty quickly if it's off to the side of the stage. The choice is yours. This is just some foam core with some matte black fabric glued to it. The dimension of each panel is approximately 21.5 inches by 36 inches. So it's basically 43 inches by 36. Now this is what works well for the scaffold that I use in this effect. If you use a different type of object, obviously this will have to be different. If you use a table or something else, just measure those dimensions in back and cut your foam core to the size and put some black material over it. You don't have to put the crease in there. I do because it makes it very easy to carry this and to store it. If I didn't, this is just pretty unwieldy. Like that, it's pretty rigid. For the curtain we used, this is just a bed sheet with a dowel rod going through it. It's very simple. If you want something more elaborate, go for it. But if you want to keep it simple, you can put this whole thing together for under 10 bucks.
Now let's see what it looks like when we just use this yardstick instead of a cloth and a stick. It's going to look really stupid if you're expecting something magical to happen, but if you're into performance art, it might actually be pretty interesting. All right, so I'm going to walk back here. I'm going to grab Justin's wrist like that. He comes over, grabs that. He's going to pull this behind the scaffolding of the wall just so it makes it easier to do the transition and so we don't have a gap here where you see bodies moving. I'm going to raise his wrist like that. He's going to keep standing up. I'm going to drop down here and go into the hidey space, making sure that all of me is behind there. Justin walks forward and dramatically reveals himself.
Here are three things to remember about performing Transformer. The first thing to remember is you want to make the switch between your hand and their hand as seamless as possible. To the audience, it shouldn't look like anything happened. You should look like you just grabbed that curtain. They should be totally unaware that some kind of switch already took place. The second thing you need to keep in mind is you want to make sure that your actions of your helper and your actions are very fluid and that it doesn't look like the hand is disconnected from your body. Videotape yourself perform the effect so you can make sure that everything looks consistent. If their hand moves at a weird point in which you're moving, that can destroy the illusion, but moving in concert is what creates it. The third thing to remember about this effect is the timing. If it takes too long or looks too rushed or too clumsy, that can kill the effect. You've got to find the right balance between getting them into position as quickly as possible, you getting to where you need to be, and doing the revelation so it appears totally magical. I'm Andrew Mayne, and this is my brick wall. 8 feet tall, 4 feet wide, 1 foot thick. Impenetrable? I think not. The brick wall penetration has different applications. Here we used it with a large brick wall, but you could also use it with other props like a door, a mirror, a large piece of metal, whatever. It doesn't matter. It's up to you to figure out how to apply it. I wanted to show you how you could take a premise like a penetration effect and go into a totally different, surprising direction.
The brick wall penetration is very similar to the transformation effect, but different in a couple key points. In the transformation effect, I would grab Justin's wrist and use his hand almost like a puppeteer would to put it in the place of where my hand is. For this, what we're doing is, first of all, we're using a cloth that doesn't have a rod in it, which means we've got to handle it a little bit differently. I hold it out like this, allowing for about 10 inches or so to hang below there. Justin comes in and grabs that lower edge, and as we shake it out, his hands take the place of my hands, revealing his knuckles and fingers.
A cool thing about this effect is the fact that there is no gimmick to it. There is no trickery to it. The real deception is happening through choreography. Because of this, you could use it as a kind of challenge effect. You could have a real brick wall or a real mirror or whatever you're going to use on stage, like a door or something like that, and bring people up and actually let them inspect it. Put it into a lobby beforehand, let them check it out, bring it on a stage, let them inspect it again to make sure the thing is real and there's no gimmicks on it whatsoever, because there aren't. You can also use this effect as a way to make yourself appear on stage. The curtains open up, and there's the wall. Two assistants walk out, and they spin the wall around. As they do this, they bring the wall close to the edge of one side of the stage, and that's where you secretly walk behind it and get into the position to make the switch with one of your assistants who's going to grab the cloth and stand in front of it. That's one way to use it. You could use it other ways too. It's entirely up to you. If you take anything away from the brick wall penetration, it should be the idea that you can use your circumstances and surroundings to sometimes create magic. If you're going to do a brick wall penetration, you have to have a brick wall. Because there's a wall there, it makes it very easy for you to hide somebody else behind there, which can then make it easy for you to perform the illusion without elaborate props or illusions or whatever.
Let's look at the brick wall in 3D. The wall should be placed so it's as far forward as possible without revealing your assistant who's hiding behind it. Your assistant can already be there or get in a position when the wall is pushed to the edge of the stage.
To perform this effect, you don't need a big giant 8-foot by 4-foot brick wall. You could use something else, like maybe a mirror or maybe an actual door in a door frame. This wall is just a piece of brick paneling on a flat, and it moves into place. For the cloth I use for the brick wall effect, this is just a large bed sheet folded in half. That's all. There's nothing more to it. That's all it needs to be. So just get a bed sheet and fold it in half the long ways, and you need to have about 8 or 9 inches folded over that way, and you're ready to go. Let's take a look at what the illusion will look like from the back. I'm going to start off with the cloth in my hands like this. I've got it folded over with about 8 to 12 inches draped over like that. I'm holding on to this with my right hand, holding onto that crease. I'm going to hold on to that part with my thumb and then drape the rest of it over my arm. This makes it very easy for me to unfold the cloth and pull it open and have that section down there that Justin's going to grab hold of. Justin's going to be in position just waiting right behind here. He's in a crouched position, and he's going to wait for my cue to come up and do the displacement of the hands. So I'm in front of the wall. I'm doing my explanation of it's a brick wall or a door or whatever. I'm going to unfold the cloth, and as soon as I pull it open like that, and this hand goes over that front edge like that, I'm going to give Justin a cue to start walking around. So it might be a verbal cue, like 8 feet tall. And as soon as we have that, Justin's going to do kind of a duck walk. His hands come below mine, and we're going to do kind of a smooth transition. He bumps my hands, we just bring him up, and then drop it, and he shakes it out. And just like that, he will start to stand up. I'm going to guide him a little bit and push him forward as I go behind the wall and wait for my cue to pop around and rip the cloth away.
Here are 3 things to remember about performing this wall penetration. The first thing to remember is you got to have a clear idea of what you're doing, either an appearance or a penetration. If you're doing a penetration, then you need to establish the integrity of the wall that you're moving through. If you're doing an appearance, it's not as important so much as establishing the fact that there's no place for somebody to have been hiding before the effect started. The second thing to keep in mind is that you want to keep in constant motion. From the moment you pick up the cloth and your helper takes your place, you want to have a very, very fluid movement that's consistent with you picking up the cloth and walking to the front of the wall. The third thing to keep in mind is the critical timing between when you cover yourself up and then when you pull the cloth away, revealing your assistant is now in front of the wall. Too long or too short and it won't look magical enough. Think about a card trick where you do a double lift and you show a card and then you place it in the middle of the deck and you show it's back on top of the deck. There's timing to that. Technically everything may be perfect, but the moment from when they see the card to when it goes in the middle of the deck and then you reveal it's back on top are very critical. And the same thing with this trick. This is basically a giant version of that card trick. I think shadows are one of the coolest effects in all of magic. I think they're magical looking. I think the idea of watching something start to materialize before your eyes, but not quite before your eyes, is very, very powerful. More powerful than if you just watch somebody appear instantly. The reason is this. In really good storytelling, whether it be magic and illusion or film or television, you've got to let your audience put part of the puzzle together. You want to suggest things and let them make their own connections. When they watch that shadow box and assume that it's totally empty because the front of it is completely lit, and then see something begin to form in the light, a silhouette, it's spooky, it's cool. Their brain is all of a sudden working overtime trying to figure out what that is, trying to figure out where it's coming from, because it looks like the box is empty, and all of a sudden they're seeing a shadow begin to form and slowly materialize into the shape of a person. That's powerful, powerful visual magic, and for my money, it's better than anything you could do on a computer. This is the entire shadow box effect. Everything I need is right here. Well, that and a helper. Let me show you how quickly this sets up. Just add an assistant and you're ready to go. This shadow box illusion is a totally self-contained effect. You can perform it in just about any environment and not have to worry about angles. The only thing you have to have control over is the lighting, and just to bring it down enough that the black art effect that makes this whole trick work will be convincing. If we take a look at the inside of the box, you can see where the person's hidden. Right in back